The Atari 2600 emerged victorious over the Fairchild Semiconductor system. It essentially, at this point, was the only console left on the market capable of having multiple games that weren't just basic Pong clones. So, through that, the Atari 2600 has secured itself as being one of the premier gaming systems in the early golden age. But now, someone mentioned in my last episode that they wanted to see what the best game on the system was, or the best-selling game was. And we're going to do that. So we're going to start with the top 5 games and kind of work our way there. So, thanks for joining me today. Welcome to While You Were Gaming. The 1980 release of Space Invaders on the system sold a massive 2 million units, and is credited with helping to quadruple the number of 2600 sold. Developed by Taito, in 1978, the game enjoyed enormous success as an arcade cabinet. It was no surprise it would enjoy massive success as a home version. This, of course, is me talking in 2020 hindsight. However, the game did insanely well on the console. Fun fact about the game, Space Invaders was developed basically with the game speed gradually increasing. However, because the console's CPU was freed up every time you destroyed more and more alien spacecraft, the game got gradually faster. However, this mechanic wasn't intended, it was just a result of the freed up space on the CPU. The mechanic was enjoyed so much it was actually kept in the game. The number 4 best-selling game on the Atari 2600 is Missile Command, one of my personal favorites. The game went on to sell 2.5 million units for the Atari 2600, and it was incredibly successful in the arcades. The game strove to pit players against one another in an endless barrage of atomic warfare that seemingly never end. Fun fact about the game's creator, when basically developing the game, began having nightmares more and more often because originally the game had the name of American cities in it that you were defending. So as a result, to kind of free his mind from the stress of atomic destruction, he came up with a rather interesting sci-fi plot to put on top of that. The number 3 bestseller for the Atari 2600 is Asteroids. A game released as an arcade cabinet in 1979, Asteroids enjoyed incredible success when it was ported to the Atari 2600 in 1981, when it sold a whopping 3.8 million units for the home console. The high score for Asteroids, interestingly enough, was set by Scott Safran in 1982, and that score stood until 2010, when it was broken during a 58-hour live marathon. Unfortunately, people tried to find Scott and basically tell him about what the events that occurred, but it was sadly discovered that he had actually died in a car accident in 1989. And the number 2 most successful game on the Atari 2600 was Pitfall, published by Activision. It was one of the first games to be that successful on the Atari 2600 to sell just over 4 million units that wasn't an arcade port. What made it even more unique was that Activision was a company that was focusing exclusively on just making games. The number 1 best-selling game on the Atari 2600 is Pac-Man. It tops the charts with a whopping 7 million units sold. The game in the arcade alone made over $2.5 billion in quarters by 1990. It was a juggernaut. It was a game that, in its essence, spawned many things in popular culture, a popular cartoon, and even a weird song that did really well. Now that we've introduced you to the top-selling games in the Atari 2600, and given the fact that most of these games came out in different years in the 1980s, it's kind of hard to do what was going on in that year in gaming. So, today we're going to leave you with something from the 1980s that's utterly and truly disturbing. The unblinking eyes of an Ewok. Stare into its soul as it gazes deeply into your mind. Oh, but thank God Luke has added blinking ability later. If you like this content, I highly suggest you check out my website, HistoricNerd.com. I also highly suggest you check out theconsoleexplosion.com. It has a number of other content providers there that generate quite a bit of good work that you might find enjoyable. If you want to say something to me directly, feel free to contact me at @HistoricalNerd on Twitter.com. So feel free. Alright, thank you very much for dropping by. Have a great night, evening, or day, whatever it is you're doing. Bye.